I was able to get up out of the exam chair and whatnot, and so I picked up my phone and I scrolled through my stuff and found the pictures. And so I showed it to her and she was like, "You're absolutely correct." She was like, "These are mucoceles." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right, bitches." Like, oh my gosh, I take so much pride in proving doctors wrong at this point, because it is a horrible, horrible thing that the go-to for like 99.9% of doctors is to not believe you. You absolutely have to prove it. You have to prove it with pictures. You have to prove it in person, or it didn't happen. Okay, so I'm gonna catch you up on the Salivary clinic / oral maxillofacial surgery appointment. So I have to go to the Salivary clinic, which is part of the oral and maxillofacial clinic for my hospital. I have severe dry mouth, and it falls into the same problems as my eyes and my sinuses. Everything is just, it's so dry, like it's ridiculously dry. And I've always had bad teeth. Like, they look pretty, but I've had cavities on top of cavities and root canals and crowns, and I've got an implant on that tooth right there. And I just didn't, oh, and then the recurrent thrush is all part of that, and my sore throats are part of that. And so I have to go to the Salivary clinic because the only definitive way for me to be diagnosed with sjogren's, which it's an autoimmune condition and it affects the moisture in your body. So it's why my eyes are so dry, it's why my sinuses are so dry, it's why my mouth is so dry, it's why I have complications with GI because it's too dry, not to mention my dehydration and blah blah blah. So I really didn't know what to expect from the appointment, and because at first I was told that the lip biopsy that I have to have done was going to be done that day in clinic, which made sense because the appointment was like an hour and a half, like it was so long. And then I ended up calling that department to ask questions, and I asked something about the biopsy, and they were like, "Oh no, you know, the biopsy is not going to happen the first day. She never does it the first day." And then, so I'm frustrated because of course the first person told me, of course it's going to be done the first day. And then I ended up talking to my rheumatologist about it, who's friends with the oral surgeon that I'm seeing. And she was like, "Oh no, she never does it on the first day." But at least I found that out before I went to the appointment, because I would have been like super ridiculously like jacked up, like ready for the biopsy, and then nothing happens. So I go in there, at this point, truly not having any idea what's going to happen, because my rheumatologist said that there's going to be all sorts of like other testing that'll be done, just not the biopsy, because she's got to figure out if I need the biopsy, because obviously you don't need to be cutting on people that don't need to be cut on. So I go in there, literally think I wrote a book on all of the paperwork that I had to fill out, and that was after I filled out all the paperwork online. And then there was extra stuff, like 6 pages of it when I got to the appointment. It was a lot. And so I go in there, and then I was talking to one of the other patients in the waiting room, and like off to our left there was kind of this placard, I guess, that had all of the doctors' names like listed, you know, one after another. And I'm looking at the placard and I start laughing because I was talking to the other patient. I start laughing and she was like, "What?" And I said, "My doctor's not up there, so I guess I have like the secret doctor." And so anyways, it was super funny. And I ended up telling my doctor about it when I got back in there, and she was like, oh, I need to talk to my assistant. We've got to get that fixed. And it was really cute. So anyways, the doctor comes in, and the nurse was awesome. Like, I loved her. She was so funny. And so I really like the doctor, and she comes in, and I always research doctors before I see them, so I know like who they are, what they've done, where they went to school. Like, I kind of just want to have an idea. I might be more than a little skeptical of the medical profession at this point, and so I do a lot of due diligence beforehand. So I knew what she looked like, and where she went to school, and that she just moved over to UT Southwest. She used to be in a regular oral surgeon's office. And so she sits down with all my paperwork, you know, that I filled out and whatnot. And then she was like, okay, well, what are you here for today? And I'm thinking, I know they like all doctors ask that. Why are you here? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it's so hard for anybody that's chronically ill to just be like, well, let me give you a 30-second synopsis of the last 38 years of my life. And it's just, oh my gosh. And I know part of it is just my mentality at the moment, and I'm so tired of doctor's appointments, and I'm so tired of talking to people about the same stuff. And it's like, I know that they haven't heard it. I know that we have to go over it again, but it's so frustrating when it's like, I feel like I've just gone over it. Like, I've just done that like 3 other times this week. So I'm like, you know, like I have to take a breath and kind of like gather my wits about me to try to figure out what to say. And then, so I told her all about the dry everything, and she asked lots of really good questions. And we talked family history and some of that stuff, because my grandmother on my mom's side, she had scleroderma, which is another autoimmune condition. And we were thinking maybe she had Raynaud's like me. But she was passed years and years ago, so unfortunately we can't ask her. And so we were talking about family stuff, and and so, oh my gosh, and oh my gosh. I take pictures of everything that happens weird to my body. Everything. And so part of it happened because it was just years and years ago. I didn't know what was going on. And so for whatever reason, I started taking pictures, and it all goes in this file, in my medical records file. And it has saved me so many times taking pictures of stuff. Case in point. So I'm at the Salivary clinic, and we're talking about all these things, and she's getting ready to do some of the tests, which was really kind of humorous, because she's trying to get like saliva under my tongue and whatnot. She's doing all this stuff like to my glands to try to get them to, she couldn't get any saliva in my mouth. And she ended up getting like half a drop of something so she could test the pH, and then that was it. That was all that happened. So she's sitting there and she's doing all this stuff, and we're talking about stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, and I forgot to tell her something, and I was like, oh, I get these things called, I think they're called mucosales. And she looks at me and she goes, mucoceles? And I was like, okay, sure. And I spelled it, and she was like, yeah, they're called mucoceles. And I was like, yeah, well, I get them like pretty often, and I get them like under my tongue, like on the bottom side of my tongue, and then I get them on like in my mouth, but underneath my tongue, and then I get them on the sides, I get them on the back of my jaw. And she was like, she was so skeptical, shocking, and she was like, well, you know, do they ulcerate? And I was like, well, when I pop them, like, they hurt a little bit, but it's not like, I get mouth sores, like somebody put a lit cigarette out in my mouth sores. I know what mouth sores are. And she was like, well, maybe it's just a mouth sore. And I was like, no, this is not a mouth sore. And she was like, well, how long do they hurt, like after they, you know, pop and whatever? And I was like, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I was like, they're just, you know, not that long. And she was like, oh, well, you know, it's probably not that. And the next time that you get them, and I was like, I have pictures. And she was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I got really tired of doctors not believing in me, and so I take pictures of everything so that I can prove it. And she was like, okay. And so later on in the appointment, I was able to get up out of the exam chair and whatnot, and so I picked up my phone and I scrolled through my stuff and found the pictures. And so I showed it to her and she was like, you're absolutely correct. She was like, these are mucoceles. And I was like, yeah, that's right, bitches. Like, oh my gosh, I take so much pride in proving doctors wrong at this point, because it is a horrible, horrible thing that the go-to for like 99.9% of doctors is to not believe you. You absolutely have to prove it. You have to prove it with pictures. You have to prove it in person, or it didn't happen, literally. And she was like, absolutely. She's like, that is absolutely what that is. And so then she asked me to send the picture to her through my chart, so that she could have it in the records, because she hadn't ever had good pictures like that before. And she was like, you know, if it ever happens again, you know, I'd love to see you when it's happening. And I'm thinking, I'm not making a 3-hour round trip so I can show you something that I can send you in a picture. Like, and it's not like there's anything that can be done at this point. And it may be different in the future, but for right now, like, I have to like put my, you know, I need my bang where my bucks are, or whatever that phrase is. So anyway, so the other testing that she did, she put her fingers right when we started. She puts her fingers right here on both sides, and she was like, okay, open and close, open and close. And she was like, so I did it, and I wish she would have waited till the end, because that hurts my jaw so bad. And she was like, oh my gosh, she's like, you have horrible TMJ. And I was like, yeah, I do. And so we were talking about that. So my jaw literally hurt for the whole rest of like, and I was there for 2 hours, not an hour and a half. I was there for 2 hours. And so then she does this like something salivary test. So there's salivary glands like in your jaw, like up here. So she puts this like thing with this sort of kind of suction cup, it wasn't a suction cup, in my mouth over one of these salivary glands. And then oh, and thank God she put a bib on me. And she was like, because everybody drools during this test. And I'm thinking, well, I don't make any saliva. And so she puts this thing in there, and then there's like these 2 leads sticking out, and one is attached to this box that she literally sets on my shoulder. And then there's this like other piece of it, and it was like this kind of suction cuppy thing. And so it was like a 6-minute test. And she has this little cup of stuff. I have no idea what kind of liquid is in there. And then she has this kind of like little pipetter thing that she like draws up, you know, stuff in the syringe pipetter do. And then she's like, okay, well, I'm going to put this stuff on your tongue, and that starts the 6 minutes. And she's like, so she does it, and then she was like, what does it taste like? And I was like, really sour. And she was like, okay, well, at least your taste buds are still working. And so that like gets my salivary glands working. And like in the back of my jaw, like from here all the way around, if I put anything in my mouth that's like not even a spice, like it can just be salt, it can be sweet, it can be vinegary, it can be anything, but like my salivary glands hurt, like they really hurt when they like activate or whatever. And so she puts that stuff on my tongue, and they all activate, so everything hurts in my mouth on both sides, and I can't swallow normal. I have to swallow like just with the back of my throat instead of my cheeks. And she puts more of that stuff in my mouth every 30 seconds for 6 minutes, and it was gross, more than anything else. And then at the end of the 6 minutes, and she like takes all the stuff out of my mouth and whatever, and I'm thinking, dude, I'm a rock star, I didn't drool at all. And I look down, I have this huge puddle of drool on my bib. Like, it was so gross. I hate drooling. And it was really funny. Like, I think I'm all like super amazing, and I didn't drool at all. Yeah, there's literally like, there's drool everywhere. So after all that, I do have to have the lip biopsy done, which we knew, And so I go back for that on October 1st, I think is that one. And so I am praying that I finally get the Sjogren's diagnosis, like the official one, because I have all of the symptoms. I just have to be able to prove it, because I'm really hoping that's my gateway to IVIG, and we're really hoping that that's gonna help. So, oh my gosh, cross fingers and toes and everything else, and I'll keep you guys posted on what happens with the biopsy and all that good stuff. And the biopsy is supposed to be pretty easy. They numb up half my lip and then they flip it out, and then they'll make like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch incision, and then they excise minor salivary glands on that side of my lip, and then they'll sew it all back together, and then hopefully they'll dissolve on their own, which isn't normally how my body works, and so I'll have to have them removed. I don't know how long afterwards. So that's all I know from that one. So give the video a like and subscribe below, and I will catch you guys up on the next round. Bye.